the cluster device has to be my favorite one in the pack, and it's also the most complex. However, the function of the device is quite simple but effective. On receiving a trigger note, the device will play a group of notes together one after the other. We can use this device to create short, glitchy sounds, but the other use, which is maybe the most obvious, is to make a number of claps in a drum rack play roughly in sync while never sounding robotic. So let's look at the basic functionality. First of all, in order to prepare the drum rack here, what I've done is collected just a few samples of different claps. Now what I wanted to do with this device was to separate the trigger from the actual notes being played, so that I could play one of these notes and this will play individually, but also if I play the trigger note, then it will instead trigger the entire group. In this case, it's actually the same note, but we could make this trigger any note we want. Now, we need to decide how many hits we want to have in our cluster. And we can have a maximum of 12, but that doesn't mean that we need to have 12 samples, since some of the hits could have the same pitch, or even we could have exactly the same pitch for all of these notes. In this case, we can see that I've got a 0 here at the first note and the last one. So in both of those cases, it will play this clap. Then what we do is we set the root note here so that all of these numbers here are in relation to the root note. The 0 is going to play the E2, 1 is +1 from that, and then +2, +3, etc. So it's a good idea to keep the samples together here in the pack, in the drum rack, just for convenience. Now, if we just hear what it sounds like at the moment, first of all, this is the duration of the entire cluster playthrough. So it's just going to play each of these hits one after the other to this amount of time. So if we listen to how it sounds at the moment, we can hear that those hits are evenly spaced. And at the moment, it doesn't sound very good because it sounds exactly the same every time. So how can we shape this to get a better, more realistic, more natural sound? One of the ways is by using this time distribution modifier. So at the moment it's set to be evenly spaced, which we can see clearly here. Now if I select this, then it will then stagger each individual hit so that each one will be delayed while remaining in its time division. So we have to actually trigger the note to see how that looks. So we can see that each note is getting delayed, but we don't have any overlap. Still, each one is within its own division. And already it gives us a sound which is a little bit more realistic because it's never going to be the same twice. Now what else we can do is here, this is velocity variation. So we can just add a little bit so that this amount of velocity will be added or subtracted This is the maximum amount, so it will be a random amount for each hit. Now, this part here is not only a display. This is another way that we can change the timing of the notes. And what it does, if we click and drag up, is we can see that it will scale the timing exponentially. So now what we have is a lot of the notes are going to come with a very small delay, and only some of them are going to be a bit later on. We can also do the opposite and switch it to the other side if we want. We also have here a modifier for the duration of the playback. So here, instead of playing exactly 122 milliseconds each time, we could vary that a little bit just to get a little more variation in there. So there's one more thing here that I didn't mention on this side, which is at the moment, although we've applied a few different things to get a better sound from this, it's still playing each of these claps in exactly the same order each time. And if we're going for realism, then that's probably not a good idea. So here we can instead shuffle each of the hits on each trigger. So it will be different. So if we combine all of these options together, we can get, in this example, quite a nice natural sound of multiple claps playing at once.